Hi there, I'm Si and welcome to my channel called Nugget of Wisdom. This is a bit of an update video centering around the recent interview between Tucker Carlson and President Putin. The reason why I think this is so important is because obviously the threat of war in the world, major war, regional war, world war, is of deep importance to everybody. And, we all indirectly participate in this, whether it's through funding wars with our taxation, our loyalty to the country we live in, our vote. We're all participants, whether we like it or like it. And being a participant in the decision to kill potentially hundreds of thousands of young men, and also civilians and babies and children and all sorts of innocent people, being a participant in that, you really need to be informed. And for us to evolve and grow as a species, we need to be confident as individuals about why we're indirectly supporting these things, and also what we should do if we think that they're not really something we should be involved with. So the interview between Tucker and Vladimer Putin is long overdue, because we have this situation at the moment where we've been used to our traditional sort of Western media, through the terrestrial TV, aerial, and the satellite dish, our television in the corner. And we've had a very basically a very centralized media that's linked to advertising, government funding, so BBC license funded through the government, through taxation, and also heavily influenced by politicians, because the politicians can either influence policy to influence the BBC, but also they're funded by private business, and private business, usually it's large business and corporate business, because that's where most of the money comes from, and those businesses are using advertising on our mainstream television to basically hook people in to watch things. So there's a kind of a dance that goes on between politics, government, advertisers, and what comes out at the end is what you see. And a lot of what you see does not reflect a very high-scoring relative truth. It reflects the views and aspirations and perspectives of people who have their own agendas. And often those agendas relate to money, power, control. And in the past, perhaps that was what we had. We had the technology we had, and people had to get their news a certain way, and the television in the corner and all that stuff was necessary. But today, we have the internet. And what's clearly happening is that what we're hearing and seeing on the internet does not tie up with what we're hearing and seeing on terrestrial TV. And more and more, young people have no interest in watching terrestrial TV. In fact, many have been born into a world where they probably never even watched it to start with. But the older generation, who are often still the people who vote the most, are still watching this stuff. And so you're in a transitional period where you're getting real contradictions. And things that just don't line up and add up. And so for me, that drives me to think, okay, if I'm going to be, indirectly waving a flag to say, yes, go ahead and kill hundreds of thousands of people. Go ahead and, end the lives of 20,000 young children. Go ahead and kill mothers. Go ahead and destroy a whole town or a city with my taxation. I really want to know what the hell's going on here. What is really going on here? And I'm not satisfied that what is going on is basically for the best. And when I say for the best, well, wars are last resorts, really. In this world, anyone who wants to go to war just for fun or just to get more money or more power or control has a serious mental health issue. War is really a last resort. When an invader comes to your country and wants to take everything, kill everybody, take your land, your resources, your children, your wife, then you have to fight. You have to get up there and fight. And you could say that the Second World War is that kind of situation. But when you look at the wars that are now in the world and the potential for them to become regional or world wars, I mean, literally, it's like standing in a petrol station smoking a cigarette. Yes, the ash may not drop and start a fire, but if it does, we're all in big trouble. And you see this in the world today, where the conflict in Ukraine, where you have major powers, Russia, America, nuclear powers, becoming the best of enemies. And you've got the whole Middle East situation evolving with Israel, Palestine, the Gulf states, that can bring in loads of other countries, Egypt and Syria and Russia and China. When you see the antagonism, sort of the narrative now against China and the whole issue surrounding Taiwan, these tensions are boiling up. And so it's really important for me to know why I'm supporting any potential war and the killing of loads of people. And then if I think that it's probably not something I want to be involved with, how do I react to that? What can I do to try and pull myself away and say, no, I don't agree with this, I'm not supporting it. So the interview between Tucker and Putin, I saw the whole interview. I've posted it as well on my last video. Is Putin an evil, Hitler-like, satanic, trying to take over the world, he wants to invade NATO countries? No. I didn't see any of that. He's an astute, intelligent guy who's got his own agenda. He's very focused on his own country and his own people. He has an in-depth understanding of history. He's an in-depth understanding of politics, relations, and institutions and organizations. He's cunning, he's smart. Does that make him a good guy? No. There are lots of extremely intelligent, narcissistic people in the world who are some of the most dangerous people, because an intelligent narcissist is much worse than a foolish narcissist. So, do I need to decide whether he's a good or a bad guy? No, and I can't know, because I'd have to get to know him personally probably and spend a few weeks at his house and talk to his friends and all sorts of stuff and dig deeper into the things he's done and the decisions he's made, especially with respect to the lives of others in his own country. But what I got out of that interview is that he's not a crazy guy. And that's the narrative that I have been hearing from Western media and Western politicians. It's basically BS. And insulting BS. Insulting to me and us, the people who are actually the ones, en masse funding these wars through our taxation. We need to know the truth to be used as propaganda tools to create narratives that make us sort of pivot towards hating another person for no reason, and hating that other person, manifesting wars where hundreds of thousands of people are killed. It's pretty dastardly to me. The other thing I got out of this is that he is willing to negotiate. So whatever we think of him, getting him to negotiate and to be able to sit down and talk, that's a key thing. Any leader in the world who's engaged in war, trying to get that leader to sit down and say, look, let's talk. It's like anything you do. We have a fight with somebody and you're doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And then eventually somebody says, stop. Can I get both of you to sit down and talk? That's a huge step forward. And he clearly is willing to do that. I also noticed that he doesn't take too much time demonizing the other side. He didn't spend much time going, Biden is evil or America's out to destroy Russia. He didn't do any of that. So that showed me that his level of, in understanding his level of consciousness about other human beings is that he can see the dark and the light, and he can have a perspective without needing to go into a demonization process. Now, maybe he does that with his own people, I don't know. But within that interview, I didn't see it, and I didn't see any energy to do it. But also I think it was a massive opportunity for us, the war funders. It's our money that's funding these wars, really. To actually directly see the other side, what they call the enemy. And then for us to start thinking to ourselves, okay, what's going on here? What is it all about? And then there's other red flags that I have here. According to the UN, hundreds of children have been killed in Ukraine. Hundreds, and it's a terrible tragedy. According to the UN, 15 to 20,000 children have been killed in Gaza. And then I think to myself, but the Gaza situation is terrorists who attacked Israel. This is not a major war between two major countries. How could it be that many people have been killed in Gaza, yet hundreds have been killed in Ukraine? Surely that should be the other way around. And then I see the demonization of Russia and Putin about moralistic arguments from the US and other Western powers about what they have done and sort of hunt him down as a war criminal. Putin can't leave the country at the moment and go to certain countries because he'll be arrested. And maybe that's fair. I don't know again. But I would say from the Israeli point of view, if tens of thousands of people have been killed there and whole towns have been destroyed and thousands of civilians have been killed, especially children, surely the response from the West should be similar. And why are so many being killed? And these questions are major for all of us. I also noticed in the debates that are going on Facebook and the internet, people are falling into the trap. They fall into the trap of being one side or the other. I am pro-Palestinian. I am pro-Israeli. I am anti-Palestinian. I am anti-Israeli. I am pro-Ukraine. I am anti-Ukraine. I am pro-America. This is a massive trap for us to fall into. Because you can't really have a conversation. In cases where I have actually foolishly gone on Facebook and had a conversation, the minute I say, Israeli mothers and their children have had a terrible trauma, and what's happened in Israel and that terrible atrocity that occurred is a tragedy. Immediately, people on the other side will go, well, what about the Palestinians? What about us? The Israelis hate us. It was right what we did. Then when you go, oh, no, but also the Palestinians, what a tragedy to kill so many thousand people. No real justification, no justification. How could this happen? The Israelis say, you're a Palestinian sympathizer. You agree with terrorism. None of this has any legitimacy. And it actually depicts what spiritual leaders around the world, including the one man who was born there, called Jesus, would say is a really low level of consciousness. We dehumanize one side in order to justify our narrative. In reality, the killing of anyone on any side is horrendously wrong. If you take an Israeli mother and a Palestinian mother and a Ukrainian mother and a Northern Irish mother, and God knows how many mothers around the rest of the world who have lost children due to terrorism wars, they all have far more in common than any of these religious doctrines. And if you put them in a hotel for a month, they'll become best friends. So we've got to get out of this, because you cannot solve a problem. You cannot do it. You cannot solve a problem with a warring mentality. War doesn't solve war. It creates more war. In reality, if you kill 20,000 Palestinian young children And then in retaliation, you have 20,000 Israeli children killed. What you're creating is hatred and bitterness and anger that will last generations. You make it more and more difficult for the people of those regions and countries to come together and find peace. We all know this. All you can do is wipe one side out. Wipe them all out so they can't come back at you. Well, try doing that in the modern world and getting away with it with all the eyeballs all over the place watching you. If you want to lose all of the respect of every single person who's got any kind of humanity, then go ahead and do it. And if you want to put yourself in a terrible position, dangerous position, your family, your children, from terrorism and other activities, revenge, then do it. And don't tell me that if you and your children, if your children were murdered and killed tomorrow morning and brutally blown up and chopped up and mutilated, that you wouldn't potentially turn into a terrorist yourself. So the judgment of these things, the sides judging each other, is no good. It'll never lead to peace, ever. And then the other view that I've heard, which is fascinating, okay, you're all peace and love. You just want every side is great, and what we'll do is just let them continue to do it then. We won't defend ourselves. No, you've got to defend yourself. Of course you have to defend yourself. If somebody tries to kill you, you have to defend yourself. If somebody does a very bad deed, you have got to defend yourself. You've got to make sure that these people are taken out. There's ways and means of doing it that don't involve killing everybody or revenge attacks or demonizing other people or their religions. I have yet to find a mainstream religion that hasn't had an element of extremism in it. People demonize the Muslim religion as if somehow it's these kind of jihadi people who are crazy. Where does that come from? I've seen it in the Christian religion. Dogma. Hatred for other religions. Look at the history of killing. Just take the Catholic religion. Millions of women killed because they happen to have an opinion. Burnt at the stake and drowned and all sorts of stuff. And you'll find this with religions all around the world. We know this. But we also know that at the core of all these religions is something amazingly good, fascinating, and wise. The mystical Christians, the Sufis. Go into your local mosque or your local church and just see the beauty of the places and the people and the peaceful way that they carry on and how they express themselves with humanity. So we end up in a nonsense world where people are caught up in these tribal fights. And what's really tragic is the highly manipulative, intelligent people who've got a political or financial agenda want that. They want a war of words. They want people attacking each other on the internet. They want to have a situation where people are uneasy and angry and frustrated because that generates more energy, more money, more funding, more manufacture of weapons, more greed. You fall right into a trap, an abyss. And then the peace and love guy. So, let's have peace. Well, here's a really good example of how I feel about this. I had a beautiful dog. His name was Toby. He was a Border Collie Blue Merle. I unconditionally loved him. He was amazing. He was an adorable dog. He was fun. He was all the things that dog lovers love, and I'm a dog lover. And when he was about 12, 13 years of age, I noticed his eyes start to go around a bit in his head. And I thought, what's that? Eventually, with some support from the vets, I discovered that it was likely he may have a tumour in the brain or something going wrong with his brain, which was putting pressure on the optical nerve or on his balance or whatever. And it was causing him basically to completely lose his balance. So can you imagine that? Imagine when you've been dizzy and you can't tell up from down. And so intermittently he was losing his balance and getting very frustrated and angry. Till one point, it got to a really difficult stage where I'd take him for a walk. He would start flipping into this state and become really vicious and angry. Because he didn't understand what was going on, and his whole world was moving around and he couldn't find his balance, probably making him feel sick. Anybody who came near him was liable to get a severe attack. If a young woman with a buggy and was walking up the field and he happened to be off the lead, there was no question that he would potentially attack that woman or child. Could do serious damage. I didn't demonize him. I didn't form an anti-border collie tribe or pro-border collie tribe. I didn't do any of that. I looked at him with humanity. I looked at him as my best friend and a creature that I loved. And with a lot of difficulty and potential danger to myself, I pushed him into a dog cage, took him to a vet at 3 o'clock in the morning, and helped the vet to kill him. And was deeply upset that I had to do it. But I knew I had to do it because if I didn't, the suffering would be prolonged and potentially he could do severe harm to others. The point of this story is that you can love people. You can have humanity. You can have respect without the need to be all peace and love. Without knowing that if you have to do something, you have to do something. You have to go in and take people out as a society who are doing harm and damage. You can do it, but you don't have to do it with judgment. You can do it with care and passion and love and respect. And it's a fundamental problem today in our society. You know, Jesus said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do," when he was on the cross. The guy he's highly linked to Israel and Palestine. He came from that area. What did he mean by that? To me, what he meant was understanding, respect, having an understanding of the other side and why they're doing what they're doing. Look at Putin. Is he an evil guy? No, he's not. Why is he doing what he's doing? He has reasons. Maybe his reasons, according to us, are misguided or wrong, but he has reasons for what he's doing. If we have to do the killing, we do it in a humane way. You know, our police forces have to do it. If there's a terrorist attack and some guy's going around the streets with a machete, the most loving thing that police officer can do is shoot that guy with the machete in his hand before he kills a lot of people. But not turn over, run over, and then jump up and down with joy that you've killed him. No, grab an ambulance, quickly get him to hospital. Try to save his life. But stop him from doing those things to other people. That's the kind of humanity that we need in the world. And we need leaders who can see this. I really, really only know of one leader in modern times that was able to do this, and that's Nelson Mandela. And it's very interesting that it's his country that took Israel to this Court of Human Rights, but basically UN court, because they're so desperate to express that it is not right to kill thousands of innocent people. And if it's possible not to kill thousands of innocent people in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, it must be possible not to do it in Israel, surely. And the great tragedy is that world leaders are not able to do like you'd see in a boxing match with the referee, to be invisible when it comes to their dogmas and their tribalism and their one-sidedness, and just go, stop everyone, stop. It's just stop, take a breath, and then figure out what we're going to do. And if we need to take people out, we do it in a complete democratic way. We use the UN, we use UN independent force or soldiers, highly trained people specialists who can go in, minimize any casualties to innocent people, and stop those who are trying to do dastardly things and take life. It's really obvious. And so the whole Tucker Carlson interview is a move forward for us in the world, because it starts to create an environment where we can start to see truly what's going on. We can start to have humanity for each other. And we can start to work out a much better, what I call the middle way or the third way. The way of pragmatism, respect, empathy, humanity, and bravery. Bravery meaning if we have to take somebody or some group out because of the danger they pose to life, we do it. But we do it without hatred or judgment, and we do it in a respectful, targeted, humane way. So thanks for listening to my latest video, and hope to see you soon in the next one.